Good evening, Columbus community. I would like to call the organizational meeting for 2021 of the Columbus Board of Education to order. Mr. Treasurer, will you please call the roll?
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Here.
Mr. Brown,
I'm here.
Mr. Cole,
Present.
Dr. Pierce,
Present.
Mr. Ragland,
Yes, here.
Vice President Reyes.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We are going to have the Pledge of Allegiance from one of our student ambassadors from CAUSE this evening. Go ahead and turn your camera on. Hi. Welcome. We're very excited that you are here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself really quickly and then go ahead with the pledge when you're ready.
Okay, hello, my name is Vidya Karel. I'm Nepali and I go to Columbus Alternative High School. I'm a 10th grader. I'll go ahead and start now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Okay, for our organizational meeting, it's a little bit different. And so we actually need to nominate a president pro temp this moment. So I would like to open the floor for nominations for president pro temp.
I would like to nominate Michael Cole as president pro temp.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
No. Stan's shaking his head. Oh, are there any other nominations? Sorry.
Here we go.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, the nominations are closed. Mr. Treasurer, will you please call a voice vote to appoint the president pro temp?
Okay, this is a vote to indicate who you're voting for. President Adair?
No.
Excuse me?
Mr. Cole.
Thank you. Ms. Beckerly,
Mr. Cole.
Mr. Brown,
Cole.
Mr. Cole,
Mr. Cole.
Dr. Pierce,
Board Member Cole.
Mr. Ragland,
Cole.
Ms. Reyes.
Member Cole.
All right. Mr. Cole is now president pro tem.
Thank you so much, colleagues, for this opportunity. Happy New Year to each and every one of you. I look forward to moving forward in a very strong year. We've gotten a lot accomplished amidst a pandemic and tremendous circumstances and events outside of our four walls and our control, and even overcoming those within our four walls and our control. I'm absolutely pleased to serve in this role and support you all moving forward in the work and endeavors we have in the year to come. So moving forward with that, if I can. The first thing I'd like to do is go through what is on the agenda, and that will largely entail us for the sake of this portion of our meeting, the organizational meeting. This will entail us nominating both president and vice president. Once we go through that and have actually voted on and adopted who is going to be president and vice president, and they have subsequently received taken their oaths, their respective oaths, we'll then move forward with the serving or the appointed or voted upon president and vice president to proceed the meeting. With that, moving on, is there a motion we adopt the agenda as presented?
I motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, there's a second. It is moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, Mr. Treasurer, may we call the roll?
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mr. Ragland,
Yes.
Ms. Reyes,
Yes.
Ms. Adair.
Yes.
That motion carried.
All right, outstanding. Provided that, I'd like to open the floor for nominations for President of the Columbus City School Board of Education.
I'd like to nominate our current president, Jennifer Adair. I've watched Jennifer, and for that matter, Ramona, quite a bit this past year in terms of how they handled the role, helping to lead the board, as well as all the other requirements that fall on them during an extraordinary year. Decision-making, as Jennifer handled these things, was always worked by consensus of the board. She passed along information to all of us equally. She really got settled in that role, I think, pretty quickly. I had the opportunity to serve 9 years of my 15 as president of the Mayfield School Board. I understand the role, and I understand there are some things different between that district and this one, but there are many things that are the same or similar. The role of leadership as board president is quite similar. And I think Jennifer handled herself and the role extremely well. And I am both honored and privileged to have the opportunity to nominate Jennifer Adair as president for the next year.
All right, thank you so much for that nomination, Board Member Brown. Is there a second?
I
Don't need a
second.
second.
Okay, second by Board Member Beckerly. Are there any additional nomination, names for nominating? If there aren't, I motion to close the nomination.
Motion to
You can
close.
just declare nominations closed, Mr. Cole.
Okay,
As
nominations.
chair.
If there aren't any additional nominations, all right, nominations are closed. Mr. Treasurer, can we call the roll?
This will be a voice vote for president. Ms. Beckerly,
President Adair, Miss Adair,
Mr. Brown,
Jennifer,
Mr. Cole,
Jennifer Adair.
Dr. Pierce,
Board Member Adair,
Mr. Ragland,
Ms. Adair,
Ms. Reyes,
Miss Adair.
and Ms. Adair.
Miss Adair. Thank you.
And unanimous vote for
Congratulations, Steve.
Jennifer Adair.
All right, awesome. Congratulations, Board Member Adair, Madam President. We look forward to serving with you. I'd like to move on to now opening the floor for nominations for Vice President of the Columbus City School Board of Education. Are there any names for nomination?
I would like to nominate Ramona Reyes for Vice President.
Is there a second?
don't need it.
There's no second?
No, sir. Just wait for other nominations.
Okay. If there aren't any additional nominations for that, we can close nominations. All right, nominations are now closed. Mr. Treasurer,
Voice vote for vice president. Mr. Brown,
Ramona,
Mr. Cole,
Board Member Reyes,
Dr. Pierce,
Board Member Reyes,
Mr. Ragland,
Board Member Reyes,
Ms. Reyes,
Board Member Reyes.
Ms. Adair,
Board Member Reyes.
and Ms. Beckerly.
Board Member Reyes.
Thank you. That unanimous vote for Board Member Reyes as Vice President.
All right, congratulations, Board Member Reyes, again for your service in the role of Vice President. For now, this is the third time. So thank you so much for your service and leadership. We look forward to working collaboratively with you moving forward. Now, we will move on to the oath of office for President. Is there someone on deck to provide that oath?
I will. We've
Go
got that. I have the script. You all set, Board Member Adair?
Mhm.
If you would, as best you can, raise your right hand so that we can see it. And please repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Jennifer Adair,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties as President
discharge my duties as President
of the Columbus Board of Education
of the Columbus Board of Education
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and hereinafter to be enacted.
and hereinafter to be enacted.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Madam President. Now, for the oath of office for the Vice President.
Board Member Reyes, please repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Ramona Reyes,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge my duties as Vice President
discharge my duties as Vice President
of the Columbus Board of Education
of the Columbus Board of Education
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and in accordance with the laws now and in effect
and hereinafter to be enacted.
and hereinafter to be enacted.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Madam Vice President. With that, it is now the duty incumbent of you to take over the rest of the meeting.
With pleasure. Thank you so much, Board Member Cole, for serving as our President Pro Temp during the organizational meeting. Before we move to the rest of the agenda, I just wanted to say a few words and give my colleagues a moment to say a few words as well. I think what Board Member Cole said about us leading with collaboration and really on that same path to putting our students first has always been the principle of this board. And we started off our 2020 board year in that manner. And I really just want to give us an opportunity to reaffirm that commitment to each other, to our students, to our families, and to our community. I'm going to ask Vice President Reyes to go ahead and start us off.
Thank you, President Adair. As I guess it bears repeating that 2020 was very challenging. I want to start first off, thanks, Jennifer, with thanking my colleagues. There's there was a lot of strife and difficulty in 2020, personally and professionally, for many of us. And I want to thank you all for your patience with me throughout 2020. As many of you already know, I've had a challenging year. The good news is my last relative hopefully is out of ICU, so it's looking up. And from a personal note, but from a professional note, I'm happy to recommit to this board. As many of you know, I've been on this board for quite a while, and I've seen many configurations of this board. And this board is just on all cylinders, and it's striving and it's working forward. Maybe people can't see that because we're in Zoom. Maybe it's because they didn't see us as much as they have in prior years. But please know, community, that we are working. We're working hard. We're working hard for you. We are working on our strategic plan, on our goals and guardrails, which you're more than welcome to see next year. Our superintendent has built a wonderful team to lead us forward in these difficult times. We will continue to see a lot of difficulty moving forward from a medical perspective, but please know that Columbus City Schools is here to support you. We encourage you to continue to stay engaged with us as things transition. We ask you to continue to inform us and help us as we build a platform for how Columbus City Schools is going to be for the rest of the year and for the upcoming year. So I want to start the year with an attitude of gratitude. So thank you, President Dare, for this opportunity, and I'll yield to the rest of my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Vice President Reyes. We'll go ahead and go to Board Member Cole.
Again, I'm looking forward to remembering the things of the past for the purpose of best practices, for the purpose of understanding how to move forward and carry on stronger. But I want to put the past behind us at the same time. I don't want to hold on to the things of the past that brought us down, that brought us worry, that brought us fear, that brought us out of our character and into some sort of caricature. I look forward to working with each and every one of you to make our institution of public education for the city of Columbus much stronger, much more impactful and effective. I thank each and every one of you, and God bless us. God bless Columbus City Schools.
Thank you, Board Member Cole. We'll go to Board Member Brown.
Thank you. I too look forward to the year 2021, and I look forward to it with great optimism. I think that all the things that I had worked on and wanted to see happen with the Columbus City School Board during my first term have moved forward, have changed in some ways, and I have really enjoyed this past year as a school board member. Now, I've got, I guess I'm just about reaching 20 years as a school board member, and you know, overall, I've loved the work. That's why I came back to it here in Columbus. I've enjoyed working with colleagues and educators and teachers, and it's just been a delight, and it's why I am happy to continue. But this year, I think we're going to continue to move along the path where we operate a great deal by consensus, where the discussions that we have are about students and putting students first and doing what's best for their education and preparing them for their futures. And that's where it should be. And so I'm appreciative of that, and everybody on this board contributes to that, and I would love to see that continue. This board continues to improve and do better on understanding its role, and each board member understanding the role of a school board member, specifically understanding that there is a significant difference between oversight and guidance that we can provide and operations and administration, which we've improved considerably to stay out of, and to leave that to the professionals, to Dr. Talisa Dixon as our superintendent, and others who are just outstanding. Not without properly checking things, but this board has done a really good job with that. I think we're on track with evaluations, which is great. And let me say also, this virus, COVID-19, does not recognize the calendar as we all do. I know there has been a great deal of wishing and hoping that with the end of the year and start of another, that things dramatically will change with respect to these health issues and the pandemic. I don't foresee that. I think that those issues are going to dominate us for the next year. And I'm speaking of calendar years. I think they are challenging, they are tough. And again, we have done a great job and will continue in focusing on what's best for our students. And we will talk about that, and we will collectively reach some sense of where we go. So with that and my optimism for the year, thank you to all of my colleagues.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. We'll go to Board Member Ragland.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to Vice President Reyes. Thank you both for your leadership throughout a very challenging 2020. I'd also like to thank Dr. Dixon and her team for the extra work that they had to do to get a lot of things done in a relatively quick period of time in order to allow for learning to continue for our young people. The administrative team, the entire staff and faculty of each school, everyone that put shoulder to plow to make this all possible for the over 46,000 students that we have under our care here in Columbus City Schools. I appreciate the comments of my colleagues, particularly around this student first focus for this board. One of the things that we have realized is that a student first focus does not always merit favor with adults. And oftentimes when we endeavor to put the needs of our students first, it puts us on the opposite side of the table for many adults, internally and externally. And I accept that challenge. I am here for the young people, for their benefit primarily, and this board has proven to be the same. And I am just grateful for the opportunity to serve this community. I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve with this group of individuals. Had a really good chance of getting to know many of you personally over this last year due to a lot of conversations and seeing our collective successes and some setbacks as well. But it has all been worth it for these young people. And so thank you for this opportunity. Looking forward to what we will accomplish together in moving Columbus City Schools and our students and their families forward here in 2021. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak, President. I yield the floor.
Thank you so much, Board Member Ragland. We will go to Dr. Pierce.
I actually didn't have comments to say, but I will congratulate both of you all on continuing to lead our board, and I'm ready to get to work. So let's get back to work. Let's take care of business. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Board Member Beckerly.
Yes, I agree. I don't want to belabor this because a lot of my thoughts have already been shared, and I think the gratitude is high on the list. I said, I'm also would like to share that I'm excited. Despite a raging pandemic and, you know, being forced into remote learning, we have accomplished a ton. And they're big things. And I think it's just worth mentioning a few of them. And I know, Dr. Dixon, I won't get to all of them. But the things that popped into my head right away were, we are now a district where all our students have devices and access to the internet. That is huge. That's something to be really excited about. We have an Office of Equity up and running, and we're poised to make equity the overarching goal for every decision we make in this district. That is huge, and that is, we did this during a pandemic. And the royal we, I should say, our team did this during the pandemic. I'm going to put a plug in for, we rolled out a new phonics program. I'm sure that, you know, we've got lots to learn. It was hard in the pandemic, but that's a foundational important thing, foundations that we started this year. We've made incredible progress working with AJ to come up with really meaningful SMART goals and objectives and to be intentional. These are huge, huge things. We've done the portrait of a graduate. We now have a North Star. We as a board conducted listening sessions with the community, and the community was so excited and grateful. That's something we're going to have to keep doing now that we know we can't stop doing it. And the teachers have risen above and beyond in so many ways this year. Ways of being creative in their instruction and learning how to adapt, ways of learning how to engage. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It was hard. It was, you know, it was a lot of work and it was a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety, but we have seen so much inspired teaching and inspired strategies, intentional community building among the teachers. How do they create community in their classroom online? Harnessing the power of technology. I think we need to make sure we somehow catalog and leverage everything that we've learned and figured out, and we continue to employ these practices going forward. So I am excited and grateful and honored and happy to be here.
Thank you, Board Member Beckerly. So I like to do this just to reconfirm to ourselves as we all move forward together as 7, governing this district, working together with our administrative team and representing the community that we were all elected to serve. Patience, gratitude, learning from the past, optimism, forward progress, students first, collective success, getting to work, excitement, equity, and academic progress. These are all the things that we have committed to one another and to our community going forward this year. We have done a lot of work, and a lot of you have said all of the things that we have done, and we have a lot more to go. And what I really hope is that the Columbus community, our staff, our administration, our families can feel that this district is starting to turn for the better. And we have a lot of work to do. And each of us has our own leadership style, communication style, passion, and it's together that we will all move the district forward. I'm excited as well. I'm excited for the work that we are going to do as a team. I'm excited for the work that we will do as a team that will collaborate and really bolster the work of our administration. I'm excited that equity will be a core value of this district. And I am excited that we are going to work on real systems change and address issues of institutional bias, not just here in our education system, but among our sister governments. We have a lot of work to do. I'm excited to lead. Thank you for allowing Ramona and I this opportunity again. And we are going to get started. I see Board Member Brown waving at me.
I always like the wave at you. I just had one brief addition. We've talked, excuse me, we spoke collectively about our teachers, our administrators, our students, and our conduct with each other. But we must also acknowledge the very hard work and the special, you know, the special efforts that have been made by our classified staff, by our bus drivers, our custodians, the folks that work with Joe Brown in the food operation, and all of those things. Secretaries, just lots of other staff have done extremely well under very tough circumstances. And they too have contributed to the success that we've seen in the past year. And I have no doubt that they will continue to contribute and be a major part, a significant part of our family, Columbus City School family. And I want to thank them for all they've done.
Yes, thank you, Board Member Brown. And on that note, every single person that is associated with our district does have a very, very important role in how we move forward. I tell Dr. Dixon, I said, you know, when we get this strategic plan up, I want every single person who is associated with us to be able to tell us how they play a part. And that's from the parents all the way up to the superintendent. And so everyone is part of our success. So again, thank you so much. And thank you for that great reminder, Board Member Brown. See, we do it as a team. We do it as a team. Okay, well, we are going to go ahead and then move forward with the rest of our organizational agenda. We just have a few more items of just regular business to attend. The next one is item 4.5, which is the approval of the 2021 meeting calendar. Most of our regular meetings will be held on Tuesdays, the first and third Tuesday of each month at 5:30. We sometimes will hold some additional business meetings as necessary and some retreats. And then we will have an organizational meeting that must be scheduled now for next January. Board members, you have received the calendar, and it is also part of board docs, so the public can see that too, to check out all of those dates. So we will need a motion to approve the 2021 meeting calendar.
I motion that we approve the calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? Board Member Brown.
I assume that the version of the calendar that we're approving shows the change on September 7th to September 8th.
Yes, sir.
I thank you all for recognizing that and permitting that accommodation. Thank you.
You are welcome. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mr. Ragland,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. The 2021 calendar has been adopted. The next is the appointment of board members to various associations in which we are members. The full list is in the agenda, but I will go over it just for sake of clarity. As delegate to the Ohio School Board Association Annual Conference, that will be me, Jennifer Adair. As legislative liaison to the Ohio School Board Association, that will be Eric Brown. The John E. Foster Minority Scholarship Advisory Committee liaison will be James Ragland. The Council of Great City Schools liaison will be me, Jennifer Adair, as board president. The National School Board Association Cube Action Network delegate will be Michael Cole. The Ohio School Board Association Student Achievement liaison will be Carol Beckerly. The Ohio School Board Association Board of Trustee member will be Dr. Tina Pierce. And the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials liaison will be Ramona Reyes, Vice President. Is there a motion?
I motion.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Dr. Pierce,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ragland,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole.
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to all of your appointments. The next we will do is adopt the evaluation schedule for our direct reports, which includes our superintendent, treasurer, and internal auditor. This is required by our bylaws. And for each of those, the resolution is that the schedule of the annual evaluations for the superintendent, CEO, treasurer, CFO, and internal auditor, CEA, pursuant to bylaw 0154D, that each will be evaluated no later than June 30th of 2021. The official or the expanded calendar has been sent to all the direct reports as well as board members so that you have the exact dates that we will be doing those evaluations. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
A motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Any comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ragland,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, so the last thing to do for the organizational meeting is a motion to adjourn this meeting so that we can jump right into our business meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Vice President Reyes,
Yes.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mr. Ragland.
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you so much. All
Good
right,
job, everyone.
we will, I will now call the regular business meeting of the Columbus Board of Education to order. Mr. Treasurer, will you please call the roll for this meeting?
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
President, yes.
Dr. Pierce,
Present.
Mr. Ragland,
Here.
Vice President Reyes.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We already had the Pledge of Allegiance this evening by our wonderful student ambassador, so we will waive for this portion of our business meeting, but we thank her again for participating. So let's review our agenda. This evening, we have no board recognitions, but we do have 2 speakers for public comment. We have a report from our superintendent. No expected reports this evening from our internal auditor or treasurer. We have items in board matters. Of course, we have our consent agenda this evening. And we will conclude with announcements. There is no executive session scheduled, and then we will adjourn. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Any comments or concerns? Seeing none, please call the roll.
President Adair,
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Dr. Pierce,
Yes.
Mr. Ragland,
Yes.
Vice President Reyes.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you so much. The agenda has been approved. All right, we will go ahead and move into our public comments for the evening. Each public participant has 4 minutes to address the board. Board Liaison Nichols will get each one of them on the phone. The first is Shanika Shepard. The topic is extracurricular activities for winter. The action requested, I would like the Board of Education to make a decision about participation with winter extracurricular activities. Ms. Nichols?
President Dare, the speaker's on the line.
Ms. Shepard, you have 4 minutes to address the board.
Okay, hi everyone. Good evening. My name is Shanika Shepard. I'm a local business owner for the community, and I am a student that attends Northland High School. She's a sophomore, and she's a basketball player. So I'm actually calling, and I'm just speaking on behalf of all the student athletes and the parents. You know, there are some people who are hesitant to speak up because they feel like that they're not going to be heard. I just need some clarity as to why the season has been pushed back. And at the rate that we're going, it doesn't even look like there will be a season. So I just want to understand, what is that reason? Cases are down. Other schools, some that are within walking distance to Columbus City schools, are playing, yet we are not. You have these student athletes who have friends who go to some of these, suburban schools, the Catholic schools, they're playing, and the kids are questioning themselves as, okay, why are we not playing? It's always the inner city school students that are always the ones left behind, always lacking resources, proper support, proper funding. Why? If we had a solid and stronger alumni or a heavy booster system, not playing wouldn't even be a topic of discussion. Sports for a lot of these students is a saving grace. It's an outlet. It gives them an escape mechanism. It's also an opportunity for some of these kids to receive financial relief from college. It gives them that positive outlet where they can be free and further advanced in their skill set. How can we possibly expect for the teams to be ready for states, which starts in February, if their season allegedly is now scheduled to start on January the 24th? We just keep giving these kids false hope, and it's bad enough that they can't even practice, have 4-man workouts, no training, and that's how people end up getting hurt. Again, I'm asking for the board to make a decision on the matter. Either let the student athletes play or cancel the season. Football and volleyball were allowed to happen, and they're on winter sports like nothing is going on. We could actually come up with ways to put in, a plan B, a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, or plan D in motion. All other school districts have put in measures in case, they need to make adjustments, for the team. So I just don't understand why it's an all or nothing situation with Columbus City schools. And I really would like to have some clarity on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shepard. Are there any clarifying questions from the board? It was Board Member Ragland first, and then Dr. Pierce.
Yes, Madam President, I think our next speaker is speaking on the same topic. Is that correct? And
yeah.
then I think I will allow for the next speaker to speak, and then I'd like to address the administration at that point.
Okay, Dr. Pierce.
So first,
able to stay on the phone?
Yes, ma'am. Please stay on the phone. Dr. Pierce.
Ms. Shepard, thank you so much for not just being an active parent in our community. So I've seen you at a number of different athletic and extracurricular activities, but your business is also always stepping up to take part in our activities at our schools, as well as our community and recreation centers. So thank you for advocating and supporting our schools and our students on this very key and critical issue. My question is, throughout this suspension, has your daughter's coach communicated with you all about the standing of sports, specifically potential dates when it will start again, potential ways that you can still showcase your daughter's talents so colleges can be looking at her still to recruit her?
So the coach, has given us like the update as far as, when they can get back into the gym. So the latest update that we received today was it's been pushed back to the 24th of January. Again, if states are scheduled to happen the middle of February, that leaves very little time for the kids to get into the gym, to do a little bit of conditioning and play. It's kind of unrealistic, and it just keeps getting pushed back. Like, we're going from December 18th to January 4th or 5th. Now it's going down to the 24th. So it just seems like, in my mind, that a season is not even going to happen. So the decision really needs to be made. Okay, they're either going to have a season and be allowed to play, or just cancel the season. Because now you're putting extra pressure on the coaching staff and the students, where it's like, okay, so if they get the green light, it's time to go. Like, they can't even practice, which I think is kind of absurd in my mind. Like, the kids, like, they need to be in the gym conditioning. There's a way to do 4-man workouts where you put 2 kids at one court and you put 2 other students at another court and maintain the proper social distancing. So at least that way they're being active. They're also having an outlet as well.
So thank you so much for that clarification. So one, I'm happy to hear that our coaches, at least specifically your coach, has been reaching out and communicating with you all. So I want to thank our administration for ensuring that there's regular and clear communication. My next question is this. As a parent, thinking about your daughter, what year she's in, that she wants to be recruited for basketball, would you be open to having a season that just consisted of CCS teams, meaning you wouldn't try to ramp up very quickly for this state playoff? We would literally just support creating an opportunity for our CCS high schools, middle schools to get into the gym and play some games against one another.
I'm open to them playing. They need to play. And I don't understand how football and volleyball, they were allowed to take place, and now winter sports are suffering. And they can't even get into the gym. And it feels like a game of like Ring Around the Rosie or an episode of Who's on First. Like, you can't get a clear answer. And instead of just coming out saying that we're suspending, like we're just going to cancel the season, it's just keep getting pushed back. It's being prolonged. And I think it's sending a very bad message, and it's not showing, it's giving the kids a sense of false hope.
Thank you so much for that. So I appreciate, even though you're just speaking on behalf of yourself and your daughter, again, communicating that you are open to the opportunity for our students to play, even if that is an abbreviated season that just consists of our students in our school. Thank you so much. Those were all my questions, President Adair.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Are there any other clarifying questions for Ms. Shepard? Mr. Cole.
Thank you. And not only will this be towards Ms. Shepard, and first of all, thank you, Ms. Shepard, so much for coming in advocacy of not only, again, your child, but so many. We do know that you can only effectively speak for yourself and your child, but I know that you're advocating for so many others who are in this circumstance. So thank you for that. With that in mind, have you paid a winter fee at all for your daughter to participate in winter athletics? And what I'd like to know from the administration moving forward, post the comments of our second speaker, how much do we know we can account for in winter athletic fees paid on a per parent or per student basis?
I know I can speak for myself. No fee has been presented to me as of yet, because everything just kept getting prolonged. Like, we even reached out to a local sportswear company to put a team store in place, so that the money that it's a form of fundraising, so that was going to help offset some of the additional fees. We came up with another option to raise money for both the boys and the girls team. But because everything keeps getting pushed out and the kids can't get into the gym, we couldn't do anything. So I also don't think that, how much fees if somebody hasn't paid fees, I don't think that should be a determining factor whether or not the season continues to get prolonged, if that makes sense.
Thank you very kindly.
Any other clarifying questions? Thank you, Ms. Shepard, for coming to advocate on behalf of your student and others. We have a second caller who has a very similar question, so you might want to stay on to listen to that caller as well. Thank you so much. Ms. Nichols will go and get our second caller now, who is David Rhodes. Topic: winter sports and graduation. Action: I would like the Board of Education to answer why a decision has not been determined for winter sports and graduation. We will wait for Ms. Nichols to come back with Mr. Rhodes.
President Dare, the speaker's on the line.
Thank you. Mr. Rhodes, you have 4 minutes to address the board. You may begin.
Well, I won't say what I was going to say a lot because he spoke for most of what I was calling for, but I will say this. The schools and the attend right on their zip codes, I have from Columbus Health Department, the numbers of COVID cases in zip codes, and are actually going down compared to some of the suburbs zip codes. Also, if there's such a big issue with COVID in Columbus and Franklin County, I don't see the Columbus Health Department getting on St. Charles, Hartley, any of the Catholic schools, Bexley, who all reside in Columbus, or Franklin County, who reside when they're there for Hilliard, and all the Franklin County schools. Why? I can only say this. It's really sad, and I'm going to go there because I'll hold my tongue, that we as a district led by a Black woman, primarily Black students, are being treated different than our suburb counterparts who are primarily white. We're taking the bullet, not having athletics, not able to have a chance to get scholarships so they can go to school free. And just in general, this would be a break from a mental capacity of the COVID where they have a release. They don't even get that. So I really need for you to explain why you are following an advisory. This is not an order. It's an advisory that all other Franklin County suburb schools have chose not to follow. So instead of waiting 2 weeks from now, can you explain to us your rationale?
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Did you want to speak about graduation? That was on your list as well.
Oh, yes. Yes. In last year's graduation, our kids got gypped in graduation. Every other school district came up with a solution to where parents were able to attend, see their kids get a diploma, and leave in a safe, orderly manner. And I have a strong feeling that it will be that again this year as what you tried last year. Why are we being treated different than our counterparts in every aspect? Graduation and now athletics. You know, to me, it's on purpose.
Okay. Are you finished, Mr. Rhodes? You still have a few more minutes.
I'm finished. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Are there any clarifying questions for Mr. Rhodes? I see Dr. Pierce and I believe Board Member Ragland and then Mr. Cole. So Dr. Pierce.
Mr. Rhodes, I will, thank you for coming to advocate for our students on this very important issue. As a mother of an athlete whose season has been suspended, and as a student who was active in basketball at Beechcroft and on the team, I know the importance of sports. And so I appreciate you coming today to advocate for our students to get back onto the fields and onto the courts. I will ask you the same question that I asked of Ms. Shepard earlier. Would you be in favor of an abbreviated season, even if it is just our CCS schools playing against one another, our CCS teams?
Look, that really is a trick question. Of course, we will accept anything, but the hope is not to have to wait till the 24th. That's a trick question. I would prefer that we start tomorrow. But if you give us the 24th, yes. Do I think that's acceptable? No.
So let me just clarify. So my question, I am staying in my role and boundary as a board member. My role as a board member is to help to create opportunities for our students, our staff, and community to move forward in ways that they want to move forward, in ways that their policy preference, their values are met. It is the role of our superintendent and Dr. Vincent Clarno to determine when and how sports will start. As one of the 7 board members, I can definitely weigh in and advocate, which I have done and will continue to do related to our sports. So I want to be very clear that my question is being asked so I can continue to advocate in a way that even if they do, our administration comes back and says, here are our preferred dates for us to start winter sports. Or here's what we're thinking about in regards to winter sports. I can come back and say, our community is saying that they are okay with an abbreviated season, even if it's just our Columbus City schools. So I am asking a question again, so I am able to get different options and ideas for us to move forward when administration comes forward with their plans for our winter sports.
Well, I will say this, Apple-Centric is a defending state champions. Even though they didn't get to play last year, they are the last defending state champions. It would be a shame for them not to get the opportunity to even defend their state championship.
They are indeed. And I have a cousin who was on a couple of those championship teams. Howard is her last name. And so I am very clearly aware of that. Again, I hear your concern in terms of wanting to ensure that our students are treated equitably. So I guess my last question to you then is, you want to make sure that the season moves forward so our teams are able to play in the state playoffs.
Correct.
All right, there we go. Thank you very much. I appreciate your advocacy.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. We'll move to Board Member Ragland.
Thank you, Madam President. My questions are really on this topic toward the administration. My first question, can you explain, Dr. Dixon, the thought process that you and your team went through in order to move the date from the original date that we had expressed at the end of last year to the January 23rd date?
Thank you, Board Member Ragland, and to Mrs. Shepard and Mr. Rhodes. I too understand your concerns. We want our students to participate in extracurricular activities. We all understand the importance of students experiencing these activities. And I was a principal at Brookhaven High School where we had sports all year in various areas. And I was there for 7 years. I understand sports and coaches preparing students and students going to colleges on full scholarships and playing professionally in various sports categories that came out of Brookhaven High School. So I get it. And it is a tough decision. We don't make these decisions lightly. I understand, and I know everyone in the city of Columbus, everyone around the world understands that there's a global pandemic that's happening. And that is not in my control as a superintendent. What I can control is mitigating as much exposure to our students as possible. And what we do is we follow the health guidance of Columbus Public Health. And they have given us guidance and advisement. And to your point, Mr. Rose, we do not have to follow the advisory. We understand that. However, we have chosen to. They've given us good guidance and share with us the number of cases. They've shared with us what happens if we can mitigate that. It's all possible, and that's what we have done. And it has been tough. It has not been easy, and we have understood the consequences of these decisions that we make. You know, many times adults have to make decisions on behalf of our kids, and they are tough decisions. However, what we've also made sure that we've done, as Dr. Pierce brought out with the question to Mrs. Shepherd, is we made sure that our coaches are informed and our athletic directors are informed. So they are talking to our students and our families so they can understand what is happening. And as we get our updates from our Columbus Public Health advisories, that determines our dates. So to Ms. Shepherd, I understand that the dates keep moving, but they're moving because we are receiving that advisories, those dates, and we're making our determination from that. We have explored some other options. Dr. Clarino and his team have explored many options for our students to practice safely. But this virus is in control, unfortunately. Yes, we see what's happening with our suburban colleagues. I see what's happening in with our students in our suburbs, and they're playing. And those school districts have decided to take that risk, and they can take that risk. But I've asked our organization not to take that risk, that we, as much as possible, we try to mitigate those exposures for our students. We understand the consequences. We're going to work with our athletic directors and our coaches and our students so that if they are still destined to go to college, which we hope so, that we will help them with their letters, any supports, if there's some videotaping, whatever we can do to help make that transition easier. We hope that our colleges and universities understand that this is not a typical year for our students, and many students would not be able to perform as they have in the past. And we will provide letters of support on behalf of our students if needed. But again, these decisions are not taken lightly. We are up at night, we're thinking about it, we're strategizing, and we are yielding to experts. We are not medical experts. We are not. I am not. But as a leader of this organization, where I have families that have over almost 50,000 kids that are depending on us as adults to make good decisions on behalf of the students and the families that we serve. And sometimes these decisions are not popular, but please know that we are making the best decisions with the information that we have at the time that the decision has been made. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. Board Member Ragland, did you have a follow-up?
Yes, it again goes to Dr. Dixon or her team. Do we have any information available to us that shows number of COVID cases that were traced from our football and volleyball seasons in the fall? And I'm not asking you to pull that information right now, but I think that would also be helpful to this board if we got any information that says in our adjusted football and volleyball season in the fall, there were X amount of cases or no cases associated with our activities with students, participating in athletics in the fall. If you don't have that information available right now, having for the next board meeting, that would be something good to report on, just for our general knowledge, so that we know whether we were successful. I attended several games that I felt were done very safely. Shout out to our safety and security team and Mr. Oldham and our buildings and grounds and that entire team in every school that put those safety precautions in place and made sure that both the students and the families who were allowed to attend were following those protocols. I'm assuming that once the winter sports season comes back on board, that those types of protocols will also be in place. Will we be able to hear that plan of action for us at the next board meeting as well?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And no, too, we didn't anticipate the advisory being extended. Right. So, so once, we make our decisions, the advisories are extended for whatever reason. And well, they're extended because of the number of cases are still rising. And so as we learn more information, we adjust our plans, we're adjusting our plans accordingly. But we know that is a hardship to our students and to our families who are looking forward to our students being able to participate.
And one last thing for clarity, the winter sports season is not canceled.
Correct.
It is just postponed, and we will begin activities on the 23rd of January, but the season is not canceled.
It is not canceled, but the advisory has been extended to the 23rd of January. So the assumption is that on the, prior to the 23rd, we will know from Columbus Public Health if that advisory ends on the 23rd or if it will be extended further. We don't know. But the assumption is from, as the one parent stated, that, well, if we don't, because of the time that playoffs are for the basketball, that, well, if you're not going to play now, then, realistically, can you prepare for these playoffs? So I understand what Ms. Shepherd is saying, but we have not canceled the season for the year. We've only been continuing to follow the guidance from Columbus Public Health and suspending sports and following that guidance.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dixon. That concludes my questions, Madam President.
Thank you, Board Member Ragland. We'll go to Board Member Cole.
Just very briefly, because I want to make sure that both of our callers, Mr. Rhodes, I've known for some years now, and I think both of them deserve to know with clarity if we are following or using as one of the metrics for our decision making the advisement and guidance of our local authorities to do that.
Yes.
If we're using some of their guidance as that metric point, what happens then if they do extend that advisory? What then happens? Are we going to say then that the sports for winter is canceled? So how do we intend to move? What are you prepared to do moving forward if this extension is made?
Well, if this extension is made and the season, it'll be obvious, Board Member Cole, if the extension is past the 23rd and the winter sports has come to that end of that tenure, then we will, in essence, have to cancel winter sports for that time period.
No, I thank you. Some things are not always as obvious, but that's why it's incumbent of us to make sure we communicate that with full clarity. So you're telling us, and I'm speaking colloquially at this point, but you're telling us you're standing on your square to say that we are following the advisements, the guidance of our local authorities, our local health authorities on this matter to mitigate or minimize exposure to COVID-19 for families like many of ours, African American, that have pre-existing conditions that more existent in our community than any other, and more negatively impact our community. So given that understanding, you're telling our callers and all those who are watching that we're taking this risk management piece under great advisement. If there's an extension, then that we will cancel the winter season.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Cole. Dr. Pierce.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dixon, for responding to our questions thus far and clarifying some of the issues. Some of these questions that I'm going to ask Dr. Clarino might need to jump on to provide additional clarification. One, because I think it's important that our community also hear from him. He is the director of our athletics. He sets the schedules, and I think it's important that our community see him and hear from him as we discuss this issue. Two, because some of the questions might be challenging and difficult. So my first question is, when we think about the state seating and the rankings, what is the likelihood that if our seasons do start again on the 23rd, that our teams can still be properly seated for the playoffs?
So to hold just a second, Dr. Pierce, we do have Dr. Clarino on. I was going to have him come later, but Dr. Clarino, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I have my report up, so I can't see the full screen.
I got you, Doc. I got you. He's
okay,
right here.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Clarino.
No issues. Hey, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Board Member Dr. Pierce. So your question, if I may respond to the process first, because I think that's important. So the seeding process, particularly for the sport of basketball, is conducted by the coaches in your area who are in the same division. And so, so teams are placed in different divisions based on the enrollment of their overall school. So, a larger school enrollment like a Briggs High School, a Whetstone, they're in a higher division. The coaches around Central Ohio then in turn, as Ohio High School is broken up into different regions, those coaches vote on the seeding. I would like to tell you, as we sit here today, and I don't want to get too deep into the politics, but I would like to tell you that the voting each year is pure as coaches vote for each other from a seeding standpoint. But I will be very honest and share with you that it's not always just simply based on the team's record for that particular season, because some coaches who maybe their teams have had just a longer history of success, they get a little bit of a nod here and there from other schools as they get seated when that process takes place. Now, if we were to be in a position where we started in that January 23rd, 24th timeframe, and our teams were able to get in several games, those other coaches that are conducting the seeding process would look at the results of those games and then, seed as just. There's nothing that says you have to play a full complement of a regular season to receive a high seed. There's nothing that says that. So a school could be, let's say, like 5-0 if they only played 5 games, and they could get a higher seed. A simple analogy, or not a simple analogy, but I think an analogy that might be easy for everyone on the line to understand would sort of be like Ohio State football this season. Ohio State football didn't play the same number of games as some of the other teams across the country. However, the respect of the program and the games that they played still warranted them to have, per se, a higher seed to be able to continue to participate. And so there's nothing that says you have to play a full complement of games to receive a high seed or a low seed.
So I guess my next question is, when you say several games, we can determine that to be less than several. We could say that a season could be 2 to 3 games. Are there any stipulations indicating that we can't play back-to-back games? So if we had South play on a Friday night, a Saturday night, a Monday night, can we gear up multiple games over the span of a week or a weekend?
No, we can do that. We certainly can schedule multiple games in the course of a week. And a part of that will obviously play into the voices of our coaches as well, because, we don't want to burden the team also by scheduling them games back to back. So what would take place for us here today, obviously we were managing a lot of this message that was shared today. But I'll be meeting with our coaches this week, like I have been doing throughout this process. Our coaches will sit down with my team, athletic directors, and we will all talk about the challenges that they see and ways in which we will collectively move forward based on the decision that was made. And so you're absolutely correct, though. From an Ohio High School Athletic Association standpoint, there is no minimum number of games that have to be played during the regular season to be permitted to compete in the postseason.
When you have these conversations, can teams opt out if they feel that their team is not prepared, not ready to play any type of season, whether it's abbreviated, the 2 or 3 games, or whether it's extended into the spring? Will teams have the option to opt out?
So yeah, so that piece is the norm, regardless if we were in a pandemic year, right? So teams could say, hey, look, this year we're not maybe in a position to be able to compete at that level, and so that is more of a localized decision where the coach, the athletic director, and the building administration would get together collectively and say, realistically, where do we think we're at? There's a process for that Ohio High School already uses, and they have an opt-out process. They have dates already built in that say, you have to opt out by this date, because schools all over the state make that type of decision year in and year out. And so that's a normal process, even if there was no pandemic.
So it sounds like we have a variety of different options when it comes to our winter sports, right? One, for those teams whose students are being looked at by college teams, your teams like Afrocentric that have a rich history of winning the state tournament, if they're still keeping up on their conditioning regimens and finding some time to get to their local Y to shoot around, they can potentially gear up and play and still make it to our OSHA tournament. For those teams who may be a little slower gearing up, may need a little bit more time to gear up for a season, we have the opportunity to create a Columbus City School winter sports season that may extend a little bit into the spring, and we can be creative with what that schedule looks like.
Right, so the creativity from a scheduling standpoint, my office will work directly with Ohio High School Athletic Association because they have those dates and parameters set in place. But by all means, we have a great relationship. We've had, over several years, had a great relationship. So there's just a process for that. But yes, you're absolutely correct. We have multiple options that we can explore, even with the January 24th date or 23rd date.
So then my next question, because you brought this up and this is written down, when we talk about OSHA and some of their rules, I think about their travel ball and some of the stipulations that they have related to only so many players from the same team can be on the same travel ball team. Is our administration currently seeking exceptions to those rules so our students are able to be on traveling teams that might be comprised of more than just 2 or 3 students from their school?
That's a good question. That's not something that we've explored at this time with Ohio High School. That rule is really set in place for like that. I don't want to speak for Ohio High School and why they have that rule in place as a process, but I can share with you that in the past there has been situations where Ohio High School is trying to keep it so that some teams are basically not comprised of year-round teams. There are some coaches that if you allowed them, that they would never give their student athletes a break. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that they're so passionate about coaching their sport and always maybe having an extra edge to prepare that as sheriff, sometimes you have to put provisions in place so that young people and their families can have a break. And I don't, like I said, I don't want to speak for Ohio High School on why that rule is in place, but I definitely will take a step further to discuss some of those possible options as we extend into what they call those dead periods or those down periods, and coaches and teams being able to have some opportunity to work together.
I would appreciate you looking into that and seeing how we can lean in on that issue, because this has been an unprecedented year. Our students have not had the opportunity to play with one another, to gel and have a great season that we know that they would have. And so if we can move OSHA to understand the importance of providing them with that additional time to work together with their teammates, that would be great. My next questions kind of move us away from basketball, because we know basketball is not the only winter sport, right? So as I'm looking here at our state playoff dates for swimming.
I just want a quick question for you and the board. I would like to, if possible, if we would schedule a special meeting next week, and we can do a presentation just on this topic. And that will give us the opportunity to coordinate the presentation, to show our families some different options that we want us to explore, many of them that you have brought up tonight. And we can just have that one topic, if that will please the board, and we can prepare that for next week. We understand this is a very a sensitive topic. We, not just with sports, but with other extracurricular activities as well. And I think that would just give us the opportunity just to speak to this topic, and provide a more formal presentation next week, if that will, if the board would like for me and Dr. Clarno to prepare. I can prepare that for next week.
That would be great.
I think that would be a great idea. I think I don't remember if it's next week or the week.
Or the week after, whenever we just put it.
I think we should do it next week. I think we have a special meeting with AJ, but we could combine or share time, because of the quickness of what might happen with the advisories. So I think that would be a good idea. And since this was officially not on the agenda and not part of your report, I do want to give good time to it. So I think,
and I do want to say too, and it was a part of the report, but not as in depth, but just listening to the questions and some of the concerns and the community. I just want to make sure that I do a thorough job of explaining how we arrived at this decision. What are some viable options for our students? And what are some next steps that if we want to extend the season, as Dr. Pierce has suggested, what does that mean? And then what will happen, as Mr. Cole stated, if this advisory extends, then what, winter sports in general. And we have swimming, we have wrestling, we have other sports to look at as well. And that would give us a better opportunity to inform the community and to form you. So all these good questions that you have and that you're raising, we can really pull those together and do a much better job providing this presentation for you and the community.
So now, saying that, I see a lot of head nods in agreement. I do know that Beckerly, Reyes, and Brown had questions. I don't know if that stops your questions at this point. If you want to just, okay, Vice President Reyes still has her hand. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to request, Dr. Dixon, that I guess that we should probably submit our questions to you that we're hearing. And I would also like to hear, and I think this is where Dr. Pierce was going, and maybe some of the other colleagues were going, is do we have any latitude? What are the things that we can make exception to, and how can we get there, right? So we've talked about practice, we've talked about individual sports. I know a lot of conversation was around basketball. We somehow salvaged or were able to play a couple of the football seasons. So what would it look like when we get there? And when our speakers talked about numbers, right? What do the numbers look like? We've all heard Dr. Mashika Roberts. We get the numbers. We've seen it. We hear them. There's an advisory, but a lot of times the advisory is a moment in time and a picture and leading up. The advisory is made. The decision is made based on what they heard on that day and how we're trending. The trend can go up, it can go down, it can get better. So I'd like to see where can we have latitude? What does it mean to us? Instead of saying we're going to draw a line in the sand and say we're just going to follow, what does it look like? And again, as we said, ultimately the decision, you bring that decision back, but to the board, and we talk through it. But I want to see, or I want to hear what your ideas are from a flexibility perspective, from at least practice and addressing, and maybe we should hear and set up some sort of way that we can hear back from our ideas, because I think the first caller had ideas on what they've seen, the splitting up the practice, what they're seeing. There's no physical way that Dr. Clarno or other people can see what others are doing everywhere, and we can get every idea. So I don't know how we can set up or where they can call to give us some feedback on what they could envision it would look like. Not just let us play, because trust me, if we had the power, we'd say, let's go. I'm all about going to sports games. Just like Dr. Pierce, I played every sport except for football. I was just too short. But, so I think that would be very important for us to hear where we can have flexibility and autonomy as Columbus City Schools, and say, because we feel this way, even though we're adhering to what we're hearing, this is a possibility. Scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. I know it's difficult because we don't want to give false hope, but I think all of us here, including both you and Dr. Clarno, we hope that they have a season. We want them back. I know I do. So I think seeing and having some flexibility and some latitude and then talking through it would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's what we will do, and we will explore definitely a lot of the options as the speakers have stated. And then our experts with Dr. Clarno and the ADs and the coaches, they have a lot of safe protocols that they would like to put in place. We've just been following the advisory, because even with those safety protocols, we don't know what happens when kids leave us, right? Because they go to their homes, they go, and they have to be responsible, and we can't control that. And not saying that they're not, but we can't control what our students, the behaviors outside of the classrooms and the court, et cetera. But I think we want to do our due diligence, and we don't want to cause any undue harm to our students, our families. And we want to, I want to be able to bring back to you some viable options and explore some other areas and bring that back to you in a more coordinated fashion. Yeah, but thank you.
We're going to go back to Dr. Pierce, who wanted to finish her thought, and then Board Member Brown wanted to share a quick thought. And then we will schedule a special meeting next week on this.
So thank you so much, Dr. Dixon. Thank you for making that opportunity to recommend a meeting next week to deal with this issue. As you and the team, Dr. Clarno and everybody, sit down to tackle this issue, I would like our student athletes to be contacted, as well as their parents. Please share your ideas and plans with them, because what happens is our community members reach out to us as the board, and they come up with these ideas that we share with you all. They communicate to us what is happening in their continued advocacy. So as much as possible, please build a bridge between our student athletes. I can think of our basketball player at South High School. I think his last name is Cox. He's done a number of different interviews. Our 2 guest speakers that we had this evening, reach out to them. Please share the ideas and plans with them and get their thoughts on it. So then that will also help us just start at a foundation where everybody is at the table. Everybody has had some input into the process. I would greatly appreciate that. And I would also then encourage and urge you to send that to me prior so I can send you my whole list of questions that you know I will have related to the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Board Member Brown.
Thank you. Just briefly, a couple points. One, I think that the presentation should make sure that we cover all co-curricular activities that are implicated. Focus, the discussion has been entirely about sports, and I understand that, and parent interest is, but we've got a whole lot of other co-curricular activities, and we should not neglect those. Secondly, point that I was going to make and is touched on by Mr. Cole in his comments, that we should reach out to some colleges and some employers and some of the places that our students will go and find out really how they're going to treat this. Obviously, for all of those, this is a national problem. And we're not the only school district affected. And I suspect that they're going to develop some policies with respect to this year's graduating class. And we can get some of that information, probably not promises or something, but maybe some of them will. So I'd like to make sure we include that kind of information. And third and finally, as we are working with our primary advisor, Columbus Health Commissioner, I think that we are also, or should be also, considering information provided by other jurisdictions who who oversee health matters, such as the state of Ohio Department of Health, and they have pretty comprehensive information, and CDC, which obviously has a great deal of very comprehensive information, including with respect to schools and sports, things like that. Now, I suspect that Dr. Roberts does that and includes much of that in her advice, but we too should be able to follow reliable sources and good information from those organizations. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. And I want to thank Mr. Rhodes, who stuck on the call during that whole discussion. And so, Mr. Rhodes, I hope that you kind of heard where we were going and at least you understand some of it, but tune in next week, look for the notice so that you and everyone that you are advocating for can learn more. And as Dr. Pierce was saying, if you have ideas, go ahead and submit those and encourage the other individuals that to do the same. So thank you so much for, again, giving us a call and providing this public comment.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you, board members. We will now move into the superintendent's executive report. Madam Superintendent, I'm going to give it right back to you.
Okay. Thank you. So again, welcome back, everyone. As we start the new year, I know the community is waiting for more information about our plans to return students to the classroom safely for blended learning. As I mentioned in my message to the community prior to the winter break, our earliest target date for students to return to the school building in a blended learning model is Monday, February 1st. This includes students in our career and technical education programs at Columbus Downtown High School and the Fort Hays Career Center. What I can definitely say right now is that all CCS students will learn remotely through the end of January. We expect to have a final decision mid-January. The February 1st date is tentative as we continue to monitor the public health data and work diligently to solve our logistic issues that limit our ability to bring all students back to school buildings safely. One of the most significant issues we're working on is transportation. Our busing capacity is limited due to a national shortage of bus drivers and to the reduced capacity of our buses to remain in compliance with public health guidelines for the safe transportation of students to and from school. I expect to have more information to share with you as soon as possible about our transition to blended learning in February. As we prepare for the anticipation of return to schools of students and staff to the classroom in blended learning, I will join our Thursday virtual family engagement super sessions each week to hear questions and concerns directly from our families. At these sessions, we will also talk about specific topics related to how we are ready to safely open our school buildings to staff and students, and will show what blended learning will look like in Columbus City schools. I look forward to talking with our families beginning this Thursday, January 7th at 6:00 p.m. Please visit our website to RSVP and or watch our on-demand videos from previous sessions. And as we mentioned, around athletics, Columbus Public Health and Franklin County Public Health have extended the current stay-at-home advisories into January 23rd. The stay-at-home advisory, which began on November 20th, was extended due to the high COVID-19 case numbers and community spread, and coincides with Governor DeWine's statewide 10 p.m. curfew. In accordance with this continuation of the stay-at-home advisory, Columbus City Schools has extended the suspension of all in-person athletic and extracurricular activities until January 23rd. I understand this is a difficult situation for our students who typically participate in winter sports and activities. However, we must rely on the guidance from our public health officials and make decisions that prioritize the health and well-being of our students, their families, staff members, and the Columbus community. We will continue to update the community on future plans for in-person student activities as more data and guidance become available. And as we just stated a few minutes ago, we're scheduling a special meeting to talk about this next week. Also, during the winter break last month, Governor DeWine announced that teachers and school staff members will be part of the next phase of Ohioans to receive the COVID vaccine to aid in the district's abilities to bring students back into classroom in person. This is certainly encouraging news to get as we consider our options for in-person learning and bring back our students safely. We're in the early stages of internal discussions about the vaccines in regards to our staff members. We will await additional information from the governor's office and our public health officials. We also want to note that our nurses have been offered the opportunity to be vaccinated through Columbus Public Health this week. If they choose, the nurses can make an appointment to receive the Moderna vaccine. So, and as we get more information, this was offered to all of our nurses in the Columbus Public Health jurisdictions. Nurses in the Columbus Public Health boundaries were added to the 1A category. And this includes Worthington and any school nurse working within the city limits. And finally, you're going to see some board legislation on our IB program that Columbus Alternative High School to continue with the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program, also known as IB. The IB Diploma Program has been offered at cost continuously since the 2004-2005 school year. So we're excited about the continuation of that program. And we do know that this is a program that we hope to explore and extend to other schools throughout the school district. So that's all I have for tonight. And my superintendent's report is short, but next week, the next report on the 19th, we're going to bring an update on our PDK audit. And so that would be on the topic for the 19th meeting. Thank you, Board President Adair.
Thank you. Questions for Dr. Dixon? It looks like Dr. Pierce is up first.
Dr. Dixon, thank you for your abbreviated but informative report. I have a question about our graduation plan. So before we went into winter break, we discussed those plans being signed by a particular target date. Mm-hmm. That target date was also dependent upon Senate Bill 358 coming up for a vote, if I'm not mistaken on that exact bill number. My question today is, how are we doing on our graduation plans? Is that date that you gave us before winter break still a firm date that all of those plans will be discussed and signed by our seniors, their caregivers, and parents?
Yep, thank you. So as I reported out before, that our students, and I think Dr. Chapman chimed in, that our counselors have met with our families, but we did not have a mechanism to get those agreements signed in a virtual space. And that is what we were working on. Dr. Chapman, if you could chime in and provide an update on where we are with those plans. I know the goal was to have them all done by the end of the month. And if Dr. Chapman can chime in to give us an update on that for me, please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Dixon and board members. Yes, the plan is to have, the counselors have already started reaching out to all of the families. That work was underway in the fall. But now we have an electronic form that parents can sign electronically, so they can sign off on the graduation plan without having to send any papers to school. And so we will be working very diligently throughout the month to capture those signatures now that we have finalized all the details, requirements, and expectations for graduation for all of our seniors. So that is the expectation for our staff. Our senior teams are having those meetings and reaching out to families and securing those signatures.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chapman and Dr. Dixon. My next question then connects to that, and it's probably not necessarily a question, but a recommendation, a request that after those graduation plans have been signed and that we are going through our checklist for what all of our seniors need, that we're thinking very thoughtfully about senior dues. I know last year we did have to deal with those senior dues. We definitely want to make sure that our seniors have a great celebration, a capstone graduation celebration of some sort, and that we are being very mindful ahead of time, thinking about how we can, as a district, as a community, handle those costs for our families so it does not become an undue burden for them during this pandemic, and that, again, we can provide our seniors with a well-planned and wonderful celebration.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce, for that feedback. That is certainly on our radar. And just note that that will require board action. So we're doing our homework and our research, and we'll be bringing that back to the board for a recommendation so that the board can follow up and continue to extend that courtesy to our students, similarly to what we did last year.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Those were all my questions.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. We'll go to Board Member Ragland.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Dr. Dixon, thank you so much for your support and your report this evening. My first question concerns the IB program at Columbus Alternative. That is, historically been the only place where we have provided this program through the district. And I know that you mentioned that we would be looking at ways where we could provide that opportunity for more students throughout. In the future, if it is possible, I'd like to hear a lot about your timeline concerning that. When will we be able to offer the program? What is the thinking of you and your academic team regarding how we prioritize where we place the program in other areas? Would the first opportunity for expansion somehow include technology that may allow for more students to engage in the program immediately? I am hearing, because of the success of the current program that we have, we all know the wait list for Columbus Alternative is exhausted. And, that is one of the reasons why we see some of our families look for other options outside of the district, because they can find other ways to get involved in those types of academic programs. And we may be able to do a lot better, able to provide that opportunity a lot sooner. So when you are able to come back to us with any information about that, I would be interested on the technology piece, number one. And then if you have prioritized other buildings within the district, I'd like to know where those are and what your program is specifically. Is that possible?
Oh, yes. And I would say that we've not targeted specific buildings. We've been looking at the IB strategy overall. We will have to first start with what they call the exploratory phase. And so that's with your academic team and some possible buildings to kind of look at where does it fit best. So I would definitely bring that back. Dr. Terry Breeden, who has, her experiences, one of her former districts, that entire district was an IB district from pre-K through 12. So she has a lot of extensive knowledge there. And what my experience been at COS, we know the power of it. But I agree that we need to think about it from a pre-K through 12 span for that program. One highlight, though, that Dr. Breeden and I talked about is a lot of these portrait attributes kind of fit in with some of the
aligned. That's right.
I mean, there's a direct alignment already. So to your point, I think it's an opportunity for us to explore some additional rigorous options for our students and to engage them through that IB lens. And then the last point, we're going to partner with Columbus State Community College, and they're going to help us design that portrait strategy. How do we make sure that students are portrait ready? So that is a conversation we can have with them too. What does that look like, and the rigor of that, and using them along with the IB program to really formalize that strategy for our students. So thank you. We'll get that information, and I will bring that update back to the board.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that, Dr. Dixon. And then my last question was really kind of maybe not necessarily a question, but more of a suggestion if we don't have it. Understanding that COVID has really turned everything kind of on its ear. We have had staff members working remotely since March. Does the district, and maybe this is a question for HR, but does the district have any type of standard guidance for tax preparation as we move towards tax season with teachers and other folks that are working from home that may be able to have some benefits through how they prepare their taxes? Do we have frequently asked questions that we can advise our staff members on, that just kind of give them some guidance so that they are maximizing every opportunity associated with COVID? Because we've had staff members, teachers, and others who have set up home offices because of COVID, and they're teaching remotely. They've purchased other equipment that they are using on their own within their home offices to help make sure that our students are being prepared academically. And I just think that it's incumbent upon us that even if we have to go outside of what we do and bring somebody in that might be able to help our folks in a standard fashion across the board, so that they at least have a base of knowledge So when they go to their own tax preparers, they can say, here's what we had to do, here's the time frame, but we might want to be able to get in front of preparing them for what they may need to help them be successful and realize some of those benefits. I don't know if we've been thinking about that, but you know, understanding that we've had so many of our staff members who are working remotely, and I've seen some terrific home classrooms and home offices that our staff members have really they have really stepped up and done some serious things to their homes to adjust to what we've been asking them to do. And I just want to make sure that we're doing everything to be proactive in helping them get all of their benefits. I see that Mr. Bohoric has popped in, and he's got his smiling face there. So whomever that is directed to, if you've got something positive to tell me, that would be very, very helpful. I just want to make sure that we are all prepared moving forward, because you know I've set up my own little home office and I don't know what I'm doing, so I've got some to help me. But I want to make sure that our staff is adequately taken care of. So that is to whomever would like to respond. Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my questions.
Okay. Well, I would yield to Stan, but I will say that is an excellent question. And if we need to work with HR, we're providing that opportunity for our staff. We would definitely do so. But thank you, a great point. And I wasn't even thinking about those things, but thank you for bringing that point up. So I yield to Stan.
Well, thank you. Probably the best advice is that probably that we would help point people in the right direction, because we're certainly not, it's like providing legal advice. You know, we're not tax preparers. We're not, you know, licensed tax professionals. We can check with HR. I recently was, and funny you should ask, because I was thumbing through the brochure we get as part of our benefits package. And there are some counseling advisory type services, advisory type services that are available. I can't enumerate them. Myra may want to speak to that, but nonetheless, if we were to point someone in that direction, I would suspect, as you said, it would come through more of an HR function. But we have to provide, I think, a direction and not really advice, because
Right.
that's not what we do. But I think you're barking up the right tree in terms of it being perhaps part of that benefit package. And again, the benefit package isn't us as the district providing advice, but connecting you with service providers. And again, I don't know how those service providers are selected. You have to be really, you know, kind of careful about that, because we don't want to be recommending one over another. But let us not let I think one of my favorite phrases I learned from Dr. Rausch is let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and see what we can look into. And of course I'll offer to do that, because if it's an HR function, it's not mine.
You know what? Thank you, Stan. I know we have both Myra and Mike on. I don't know if they could speak to it real quickly. If not, we'll definitely provide that update to the board on our next steps. But good question.
Yes, we do have. Oh, camera.
Thank you, Myra.
You heard a voice. Yes, we do have programs as part of our benefits package. And we use an RFP process to select our vendors. And so some of those vendors, for example, United Health, also has additional programming that we get as a benefit to not only paying our claims for insurance, but other services as such. So we really do have a robust program. If you go to our website under the benefits section, we have all types of programs available.
Thank you, Myra. So what we would do, to your point, Board Member Ragland, we will tease that out, just have Myra and the team kind of tease that out. And then if we need to, just to make staff members aware that service is part of their package, we will do that. So thank you.
Yeah, we do a lot of that especially during the open enrollment season, which obviously was like towards the fourth quarter. So it is fresh on everyone's mind.
Yeah.
Thank you, Board Member Ragland and Dr. Dixon.
Thank you, Myra.
Thank you, Ms. Wright.
Thank you. Are there any last questions for the superintendent? All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Dixon, for your report. We will now move to item 6 with the internal auditor. Hello, Ms. Smith. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, President Adair. I do not have a report this evening, but I just want to make sure I give you the right date. The first Audit and Accountability Committee meeting for 2021 will be January the 28th, and I will work with Chair Ragland and Co-Chair Beckerly as we get closer to that date to develop an agenda. And I will have more information on what will be on that agenda at our next board meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. And Treasurer Berhoric, it's now to you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. No report from me this evening, but like the internal auditor, just an announcement that the FAC, the Finance and Appropriations Committee, and as I see in the next item on the agenda, I believe once again chaired by Board Member Cole, the Vice Chair is Board Member Brown, and then Board Member Ragland joining as the third board member on that committee. We will all be meeting next a week from tomorrow, which would make that January 13th at 4 p.m. and we'll be meeting virtually as we have been over the past what now seems to be 9 months. So that's at 4 p.m. again virtually, and those notices will be going out soon. That's all I have for you this evening.
Thank you so much. Board members, I apologize, but do you have any questions for either Auditor Smith or Treasurer Berhoric? No? Okay. Thank you. Thank you both. And, you got started already in my announcements. Item 8.1, we are seating our committees. We do have some committees that we are going to be seating as ad hoc while we make an adjustment to our bylaws. I've talked to all the board members about the committees and kind of the goals and, how we're going to align this work with our strategic plan. And all of you said you were super excited. So this makes me excited. Each board member has a committee that they are leading and one that they are co-leading. But we will work in leadership teams of 3, as you kind of heard our treasurer and internal auditor kind of say. And then we have another item on the agenda to talk about the actual bylaws. So we are going to seat the following committees. The new Academic Policy and Accountability Committee, which was formerly known as the Academic Achievement Committee, and also incorporates Innovation and Reform Committee from the old bylaw. And the leadership team that will be working on this committee, it will be chaired by Dr. Tina Pierce. Vice Chair will be Ramona Reyes, and Board Member Beckerly will be joining that committee. That is our Academic Policy and Accountability. The next is Audit and Accountability, and our internal auditor already kind of told you who's on that. And so we have the leadership team of Board Member Ragland, who will serve as chair, Carol Beckerly, who will be vice chair, and I will be joining that group as the third member. Our next committee, which will be seated ad hoc right now while we make adjustments to the bylaws, this will be our culture and our climate and culture policy committee. And a lot of this stems from work that you all have been following since the summertime, and really includes that idea of the holistic look around the fundamentals of what do our children need to not only be physically safe, but emotionally safe, and really kind of that idea about creating those opportunities to discuss basically Maslow's hierarchy of needs so that our students can actually succeed in academics. And so this group will be led by the leadership team of Board Member Carol Beckerly as chair, Dr. Tina Pierce as vice chair, and Michael Cole joining that group. We have our Finance and Appropriation Committee, and as the treasurer noted, Board Member Cole will continue to chair, joined by Eric Brown as vice chair and board member Ragland to round out that leadership team. We are going to see the Governance, Policy, and Advocacy Committee, formerly known as the Policy Review Committee. This has a little bit of a shift to it in terms of the amount of policy that they will be looking at. You noticed with some of the committees I've named already, we are kind of pulling out specialized policy, and this new group will be focused more on governance policy, including making sure that we are doing all the legal compliance, also be kind of a rules committee for the board to make sure policies don't get lost. And then the new part of that this group will be working on is really that government affairs legislative agenda that we adopt every year, and they'll be working on advocacy. We also are members, as we appointed members to different school boards, and we have the ability to advocate through those groups too. So kind of figuring out the best way to make sure we're maximizing our voice in those groups. So this is a new group. I'm pretty excited about what we're going to be doing here. And so the leadership team that will be working on this group, it'll be led by board member Eric Brown as chair, Michael Cole as vice chair, and Dr. Tina Pierce joining them. We will have a new committee called People and Operations Policy Committee. And this committee, is brand new, and it really stems out of trying to create policy and more monitoring around some of the administrative goals that the superintendent had, including the Council of Great City Schools HR audit that recently was given to us that we will need to work on policy around. We also have the LEDE working group that will become part of a subgroup. And of course, we have the facility master plan. So anything that's touching operations, and this is a brand new group right now, so it's being seated as ad hoc while we work on changing the bylaws. The Neighborhood School Development Partnership Group will become an official subcommittee, and it will still be seated with myself, Vice President Reyes, and Board Member Brown as non-voting members. So that group still exists, it still does great work. It's just going to be seated as a subcommittee of this new People and Operations Policy Committee. And our last group is our Public Engagement and External Communications Committee, formerly known as the Public Engagement Committee. So we've added the component of external communications, which is so important. And this group is going to be led by the leadership team of Vice President Ramona Reyes as chair, Carol Beckerly as vice chair, and Dr. Pierce joining them. And they will continue to work on working on the kind of board side of the public engagement. And one thing I'm really excited that this group will be working on is the CCS Foundation and really bringing that to life. So you can see we have a lot of work to do. Every board member has a leadership piece to this. We can't do it alone. We all have something that's important. And all of the committees very much work together, and they all strategically align to where we are going with Portrait, with our goals and guardrails that we will formally adopt later this month, and really trying to harness the power of our policy making and advocacy ability as a board. So those are the announcements of the committees. I thank all of you for being excited and agreeing to serve. In that, Vice President Reyes and I really considered your skills, your passions, your knowledge, your abilities, and I think that we got everyone in the right place to really make a huge impact. So that is the announcement of the committees. Thank you all so much, board members, as well as our administrative team that really actually makes us all look great and supports us on all of our committees. So we thank all of you for being involved. I will say that I know that you might say, well, what about equity? Because you guys keep talking about it. Well, so equity is actually a piece of every committee. For an equity agenda to work, it cannot be siloed in its own committee. So Dr. Blue will help us all figure out how equity plays in each of the business operations and policy writing that each group does. And in fact, in February, we will have a really fun special meeting with Dr. Blue to talk all about equity, which I know we're all excited about because you all told me that too. So wanted to mention that because it is critical in every single one of our policies. So those are the committees. All right, so we're going to move on to item 8.2, and we have a first reading of two pieces of our bylaws, and I don't know what order they go in. I don't know if it matters. Are they on this agenda? No. I will just do the committee one since I was talking, and then I will turn it over to you, Board Member Brown. So PO 0155 basically just outlines exactly what I just told you, the new alignment of our committees. You will find that there are some just minor edits in terms of changing numbers to words, and then a realignment of the standing committees, which really just eliminates the name of the committees and talks more about the purpose that we want the committees to do. This will give us a little bit more flexibility in terms of how we continue to structure and move and grow. It allows us to be a little more adaptable as we continue through our strategic plan. And you will find that all of our committees' purposes are identified in this document. So this is a first reading. So if you have comments, changes to this, please submit those to Dr. Roush in writing, and we will have much further discussion at our next meeting. Are there any questions right now about it? Okay, then that will conclude the first reading of policy bylaws PO 0155 committees. I will now turn it over to Board Member Brown for the next policy.
Thank you. This particular policy, PO 0131, is one of our bylaws, and in the process of seeing the work that's being done to change bylaws with respect to the committees, and it's come up in the past, it makes sense for us as a board to consider lowering the supermajority requirement from 6 board members to 5. That represents a 2/3 vote. Policies can be adopted or changed or eliminated by a majority vote of those present. As long as we have a quorum, the majority of those present would be able to affect policy. But for the bylaws, we have, and some other school districts have, a requirement of a supermajority. We're not relaxing this. We don't propose relaxing this too much. And it will still require instead of a 4/5 vote, it'll be a 2/3 vote of the full board. And that too makes a difference. It's going to require 5 board members to effect a change in bylaws rather than requiring all 6. It gives us a little bit more flexibility. It's more in line with the norms elsewhere in the state. When Neola brought this to us, there was basically a blank in the line for the board at that time to consider what it wanted to do. I don't have more information about that specifically, but the law allows us to organize ourselves in almost any fashion that we like. We've adopted Robert's rules. Nothing in that precludes us from doing anything on what a supermajority means. So with that presented for first reading, and only those two very minor items, changing the number required for supermajority, presented for first reading. And certainly anybody has questions now, fine. Otherwise, please get to me before the next board meeting, obviously, where we'll proceed with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions right now on this? Okay, so same as the other. If you do, please put them in writing to Dr. Roush and copy board member Brown as chair of the policy committee. All right, we are going to now move into our consent agenda, which includes items 10.1 to 23.7 this evening. Are there any items that a board member wishes to remove for separate vote from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Are there items on the consent agenda you would like to discuss this evening? Board Member Ragland.
Yes, Madam President, I'd like to discuss item 16.1. It is the authorization to enter into an agreement with Periscope Holdings.
Do you have a specific question, or would you just like?
Yes, I would like for the administration to give some feedback. There have been questions from the community about a staff member of Periscope Holdings and whether or not this staff member would have any type of financial benefit because of some other proceedings that are legal. I'd like for the administration to go on the record about whether or not this staff member will receive any type of financial benefit from the contract with the district, should it be approved.
Thank you, Board Member Ragland. We have Maurice Odom. Are you on?
Yes, Dr. Dix, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Can you address that, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So to Board President Adair, to Board Member Ragland, to your question, the staff member you speak of is a former staff member who was a member of NIGP, National Institution of Government Purchasing. That staff member would not have any parts of this agreement. That person actually was not a staff member of NIGP itself. They were just part of the organization. They did do some teaching for NIGP. This is a separate arm of NIGP, which is Periscope. We also, my team reached out prior to moving forward the agreement to NIGP contact and got to put it in writing as well. We asked that specific question and have it in writing that this individual would not be a part of it or is not a part of the consultant program arm of this organization.
Thank you. So to be clear, they receive no financial benefit, nor will they have any oversight over this project in conjunction with Columbus City Schools, correct?
That is correct, sir. Again, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Odom. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Dr. Dixon.
Thank you. Are there any other items? Sorry, Board Member Brown, did you have a question?
Just a brief follow-up. Mr. Oldham, is the person we're talking about here still employed by the district? Or is it a former employee?
It's a former employee, sir, and they do not actually work. They just used to do teaching on the NIGP side, which sort of is like the Fred Pryor organization who brings people in to do teaching.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Pierce.
Thank you so much, President Adair. I have a specific question related to 11.1, our resolution to suspend the GPA requirement for athletics. Can you, Dr. Dixon, can you tell me when it says the second grading period? So given our semester schedule, can you just clarify what date that would be or that time frame for second grading period?
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. I don't have my calendar. Dr. Roush, he worked on that. I think he have those dates spelled out.
Yeah, that it will be the and I'm going to pull the calendar up right at this exact moment. It's if you think of it on a quarterly basis, it'll be right there in October, at the end of October.
Oh, that's 21.
I'm just going right now to the calendar presentation. Oh, 20. It's hard to believe we're already at 21, 22.
Yeah, 27th is what it was for the last.
So I just wanted the date so I could be clear, like what sports that would entail, and just to give me that idea and understanding of
So the end of that grading period would be October the 26th of 2021. That is per the calendars that the board adopted last year.
Excellent.
Any other questions on consent items? Board Member Ragland.
Yes, my follow-up question is for Dr. Roush regarding 11.1. I know we're suspending the GPA requirement. Would it be possible for the board to implement a minimum GPA lower than 2.0?
That is certainly at the discretion of the board, if the board decided to do so. As we said throughout the as we said throughout the process, our goal is to have grace for our students and families. This is essentially the same resolution, a very similar resolution that you've adopted a couple times before.
Thank you. And thank you for answering that, Madam President. That is something I'd like to have a discussion with the board about right now. We talked about grace because of the newness of an academic environment that went to all virtual from March into the first grading period. We've since seen academic reports that show a dramatic increase in the number of failing grades throughout the district in the first quarter of the year, based on Dr. Dixon's report at the end of last year. My concern is that completely removing any type of GPA requirement for athletics, I think it sends the wrong message to our young people, even if we don't believe that a 2.0 is something that we can get our young people to in this environment, and that is, in my opinion, arguable. I do believe that waiving it completely puts our young people at a unique disadvantage. And I've mentioned this several times, not just during the pandemic, but prior to. Our young people are competing not only athletically, but in the future workplace with districts who do not show this type of leniency for their students. And when you look at what is happening to urban cores around the country, students that are graduating from urban districts like ours are armed with diplomas where the corporate community, sometimes the nonprofit community, right there in their municipalities will not hire them for entry-level jobs. But their suburban counterparts get hired. Their suburban counterparts get leniency on college admissions applications. Their suburban counterparts have hybrid learning right now. And we're witnessing around the country, not just here in Columbus, but around the country, a level of disenfranchisement of our students, primarily Black and brown students in inner cities, that is gut-wrenching, is the term that I would use. I understand grace, and I agreed with my colleagues with a bit of arm twisting the last time that we had this type of legislation before us. But in my opinion, we would be doing a disservice to our children if we left this meeting today without requiring them to have some level of being able to show that they are not just engaging academically, but performing in a manner that we can recognize, and then allow them to go and wear Columbus City League jerseys to go and represent our district. Now, I'm not certain what other districts around the state are doing, but you know, if we don't like the 2.0 GPA as a minimum for our young people to participate in athletics, I would offer, you know, something, you know, a 1.5 at least, that we can amend this legislation and say that our students will, you know, sign on for their lessons, will do their best, and then attain a 1.5 GPA in this environment to be able to participate. But we continue to make decisions, in my opinion, that put our students at a strategic disadvantage, and the rubber doesn't meet the road here in these types of meetings or at this table, right? We'll waive this requirement. We'll bring sports back. Everybody will be able to play, and people will pat us on the back, and they will give hand claps to us and all of that. And then our students will graduate, and they will not be able to attain jobs. They will not be able to get into colleges and universities or trade schools or go into the military armed with a diploma that we tell them qualifies them to do so. And I think that this is a microcosm of that broader discussion. But we've had parents who have come to us tonight about sports and being at a competitive disadvantage with other districts. I would assert to you that the majority of our students that are participating in athletics will not see athletics as their career once they graduate. And we would be doing far more harm to them by eliminating this GPA requirement altogether than we would be by extending their, you know, stoppage of their athletic season. So I just want to put this in perspective to us and see if there are any of you that would be willing to entertain a lower GPA than a 2.0. But I just cannot support eliminating a GPA requirement altogether when we know that our students are disproportionately facing the brunt, the negative brunt of what is happening academically with COVID, not just here in Columbus, but throughout the country.
Okay, before we get to people, I have a point of order though, because it sounds like, and let me make sure your intention, Board Member Ragland, are you proposing an amendment to this to change, or are you just advocating for it not to pass? Because I think
the purpose of this is a part for discussion, right? And I would like to have the discussion first. And if there seems to be some consensus around entertaining a lower GPA, I will then make a motion to do so.
Well, but here's the point of order, because, and Dr. Roush, let me know. So right now, bundled in the consent. And so if we would need to pull it out if you want to make amendment to it. So that's all. We will have discussion. I just want to know if it should stay, and I'm asking Dr. Roush, should it stay in consent to even have the discussion if he's leaning towards trying to maybe make an amendment, or should we just pull it out, do it separately, vote on consent without it?
If an amendment's going to be made to this, then it needs to get pulled out and needs to be addressed separately. It's the way to do it.
So now another point of order. Since we'd had a motion and second on the full consent with this in it,
You haven't voted yet. You haven't voted on anything yet. Certainly because the vote hasn't been taken, you haven't called the vote or a decision on that. You have the ability to essentially amend the motion at this point to go ahead and pull that out.
Board Member Cole.
Yes, Madam President, motion to amend consent agenda to remove section 11.1 for consideration for amendment.
Second.
We need a vote.
So you're now voting to remove the
Yeah, we're
remove
voting to
that
remove
item.
it, and then we will talk about it separately. So we need a voice vote to remove it.
It's removed. Is that item 11.1?
11.1.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
That motion carried. And now, as I understand this, President Adair, you still have the main motion before you, which is to adopt the consent agenda as amended, which is without item 11.1. And then right after this, you can take up item 11.1 for discussion, amendment, adoption, whatever you choose.
Okay, perfect. So we will pause that discussion and we will vote now on the amended consent agenda, which has removed 11.1. So please call the roll for that.
Mr. Cole?
I apologize for that. I've got some site issues. Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
That motion on the consent agenda as amended passed.
Okay, thank you. So now we will go back to 11.1, and do I need a new motion for it and then have discussion, or yes? Okay, so a motion then to approve 11.1.
I move that we approve 11.1 as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, now we can have discussion, Board Member Ragland. So, perfect. Okay. So, I believe it's Dr. Pierce and then Board Member Brown to reply to Board Member Ragland. So, Dr. Pierce?
So with all due respect, first and foremost, the great disservice to our students and families is that they don't have a season right now. We have plenty of scholar athletes that have a 2.0 or above, that are working their butts off, that are sitting in front of screens for 6 to 8 hours a day. We have teachers that are working hard to make sure that our scholar athletes succeed, and they have no season right now. So the disservice is that these students have worked hard in the classroom and they have no season. So the argument that it's a disservice that we lower or suspend the GPA at this particular point in time, a time in which we're having a national pandemic, is a disservice, is equally a disservice, and important for us to note that our athletes currently have no season. Secondly, the lower GPA, the question of if our students are competitive with other students in other districts. I mean, right now, again, in this meeting, we had a conversation, or I asked the question about our seniors. How many graduation plans have been signed? We have about 2,900 seniors that are graduating. We don't definitively know how many of those students have signed their graduation plans. We know that that is a process that's in the work. So again, when we talk about this disservice, when we start to compare this apples to oranges, let's be really thoughtful in how we're doing that. And let's really look and say, okay, if we want to ensure that all of our students are graduating, it's not just our athletes who are out here carrying balls and running up and down courts and fields, but it's also our seniors that need to sign those graduation plans, those 2,900 students who are receiving phone calls from their counselors right now. So we need to be mindful of that as well. And then this other element of the lower GPA. We also need to take into context that we are in the midst of figuring out how to engage our students regularly in their classes and in their materials. So again, right before break, we were able to clarify what no-show meant, what disengagement, how we really accurately record attendance, right? So we're dealing with these deeper issues that get at increasing and moving the needle towards student learning, not just for our athletes. So to create a framework that bases this resolution and this decision around us lowering the bar for our athletes, to me, we can do better. We're a better board than that. Don't say we're lowering the bar for our athletes. Don't frame it in that context. We have been, again, thinking very thoughtfully, thanks to our administration, thanks to the lead of Dr. Dixon and her team, to ensure that we are moving forward student outcome and learning for all of our students. So with this particular resolution, what we are saying is, one, we understand the inequities that exist within our social, political, and economic institutions within the state of Ohio, the city of Columbus, Columbus City Schools, that is impacting our students having the technology and the support that they need to be successful. We understand that our CCS schools and teams right now are not playing, even though OCC schools are playing right now. And we understand that as soon as we can get them back on those fields and courts safely and successfully, we're going to do that. And what we're saying with this resolution, again, is that, you know, we understand and we're not belittling or discrediting the fact that you are intelligent beyond the measure of a grade, but we understand the inequities that exist. And so we are in fact going to suspend this policy so you can have something to look forward to once our sports get restarted again. So if my remarks haven't shown it, let me state it very clearly. I'm disappointed. And I would hope that our board does not look at it in terms of us lowering our academic standards for our students, that we are lowering the bar, but that in fact, we are being proactive, adaptive, and responding to the great inequities that our scholar athletes are facing right now.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Board Member Brown.
Thank you. This issue before us is not new. This has been, I guess, through all the years of service and before, when I was a student and my dad was a school board member, has been around. And schools have raised and lowered and set and unset these kinds of bars over the years. I don't know how long it's been since this school district, Columbus City Schools, took a hard look at this. Something much more than we can do tonight. When this came up recently at a school board meeting, and James had made the same kinds of points, and I understand those, and I appreciate those sentiments. I suggested at the time that we take this in two parts. One, let's just get this done for now and allow the grace, but only this time now. And let's get to work in the appropriate committee, perhaps, where we can also get some academic input and get some new thinking on this subject and have some good discussion and develop where we go forward with this. I think it is deserving of some new discussion and to have our professional educators weigh in, to have our perhaps some coaches, perhaps others, and to have a sincere, good, healthy conversation and then decide on this policy going forward. But for now, right now, we can't do that in an instant. We can't do that tonight. But we can go ahead and extend grace to our students in these current circumstances only. And that's what I would favor.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. Vice President Reyes.
Thank you. Board Member Ragland, to Board Member Brown's point, we addressed this in 2014, 2015. The GPA for sports was actually lower in Columbus City schools. And to your point, we had a whole conversation of lowering the bar, making sure we talked about what's the impact as they attempt to get into colleges. I for one, I had my godson was a basketball star at Eastmore, and because at that time his GPA was not up to par, he got recruited, but he had to take classes in order to receive his scholarship. So I think to that point is that I think there needs to be a conversation, maybe not within this policy, from an individual basis for some of our kids, scholar athletes that want to continue, is even if the policy is lowering, our hope is there's conversations with these students as far as where they want to go and what the implication may be if they get offered a scholarship. So he had a full ride to James Madison, but before he could actually physically have it in hand, he had to get his GPA up to a 2.0 minimum. So there are implications from a scholastic if you want to continue to go on a different spectrum. But for these times, I would be hard pressed to say, I wouldn't have enough information to say what is that minimum during these times. So to state one, I think that would be very difficult for me. That's my feedback.
Other comments? Board Member Cole.
Thank you, Madam President. I can't find myself in any way, shape, form, or fashion in support of lowering the GPA requirement, let alone even suspending it. For me, it's absolutely important that we adhere, we do not creep. We do not creep from our mission that each student is highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, and empowered for success as citizens in a global community. That is our mission statement. I am vehemently in support of it, both personally as a parent here in my own home, where I had the great pleasure of making my children, and even the grander pleasure of raising them and ensuring that they do and adhere to the responsibilities of a student in a classroom. I've given my kids do well in school, but they do well in school because they have parents who gave them the business if they didn't. And we did not allow certain opportunities for them to participate in extracurricular activities if you didn't do what you were required to do. I apologize in advance if I sound haughty. I apologize in advance if I sound like my parents raised me. Do your work and your chores before you go out and play. So for me, it's super important that we understand the priority. The priority is to highly educate our students. I much more prefer to brag about scholarly students, right? Scholar athletes, scholars and athletes, as opposed to, suspending requirements. So to me, it's important that I can't support this. My vote will be a no if we were to vote on as it stands, or if we were to vote to lower that that requirement. I think our students, and I'll close with this comment, that our students have it in them to do well. They have it in them to perform to standard. I've not only seen it from my kids and their friends and other students that I've mentored or been in contact with in this district, but I've also seen it as a former educator in a classroom, a teacher in an actual classroom, where kids have the ability to step up when we require them to do so. So raise a child as they should, and when they become adults, they won't depart from it. And I think that this legislation is just indicative of that very mindset for me and my vote. So I have to be a no. What I would like to do moving forward, not for this meeting, of course, but for the future, I would love to know what the average GPA of our student athletes actually is. I'd like to get an idea of where they're falling in terms of student performance. I think that moving forward, that might even be a greater guide, at least out of several others, a greater opportunity for us to understand how to make a decision on these types of things moving forward. I thank you, Madam President and colleagues.
Thank you, Board Member Cole. Other comments? Board Member Ragland.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, colleagues, for your insight on this. Several points to address because I don't want to belabor it too much longer. But I do believe, to Dr. Pierce's point about lowering the bar, for me, the biggest problem with this is not that we are lowering the bar. We're eliminating it altogether. We're saying that the requirement right now as it is a 2.0, and we're saying that there's no requirement. And I feel you. I agree with you on our students not playing sports is doing them a disservice. It would be my intention that on issues that are that heavy, that the board would weigh in on those officially to give Dr. Dixon some guidance on what the community is telling us about what they would like to see. But that's another conversation for hopefully next week. However, for me specifically, if an athlete has the desire to wear our uniform, requiring that young lady or that young man to maintain a 2.0 GPA, or as I offered up, a 1.5 if there's, if everyone feels like a 2.0 is too hard to get, requiring that athlete to do that, to do the things that are necessary for them to gain and maintain that GPA should be a part of their training. As an athlete, if we're talking that we can't in one sentence say that we want to hurry up and get them back to the playing field or onto the court because we have colleges looking for them, and then in the very same meeting turn around an hour later and say we're going to suspend all academic requirements for them to participate in athletics. And then an even more nuanced point for me is that we have to start talking about how the rigor of our district is viewed from the perspective of those that hire our students or not, for those that accept our students into their colleges and universities or not. And the reason why I put our students up against the students in Upper Arlington or the students in Hilliard or the students in Bexley is because to employers, a 2.0 GPA from Bexley City Schools trumps a 2.0 GPA from Columbus City Schools. And if we're not acknowledging that, if we're not saying that specifically, then we're doing ourselves and our students a disservice. These employers know what they expect. And either we're equipping our students with what they need or we are not. I have a tendency to agree with Brother Cole that this is something that I believe our students can and should do, particularly when they have coaches that are guiding them throughout this entire process and that can influence them in ways that many of us cannot influence them. Now, the other academic issues with the other students who are not participating in scholastic athletics, that's a different topic of conversation, but 11.1 is about the Ohio High School Athletic Association and what our requirements are. And I feel like we're not setting our students up for success if we tell them that they can play sports but not perform well in the classroom. And so that was my thinking around it. I understand that we disagree, and I respect the disagreement. But you know, the rubber doesn't meet the road here. The rubber meets the road when they go to get a job, and you know, employer after employer after employer tells them no, and they're waving a Columbus City Schools diploma at them saying, hey, you all told me I was ready for this. And the employer's telling them no. We've got to notice when we are making decisions that lead to that around this table. And I believe that this is one of them. So.
Board Member Ragland, it's not that we disagree, it's just that you're setting the facts up wrong. This is a resolution for one particular time until October 2021.
Yeah, thank you. Hold on. Board Member Beckerly is first, and then we'll come back to you, but I agree with what you just said. Go ahead, Board Member Beckerly.
I think James's point is well taken, that he is 100% right. The diploma from CCS does not measure up to the diplomas from the Bexleys or the Dublins. I don't think this is really the mountain to fight that the hill to fight that battle on. I think the things that we're trying to do with Portrait of a Graduate and these other things, and I know that a lot of the plans that got sidelined because of COVID, like the summer school programs and some of the other things that Dr. Dixon's been working on, they're the things that are going to make our diploma worthwhile. Not worthwhile, rather, on a par. And I think that whether we have, in this moment in time, whether we have the students meet a 2.0, a 1.5, or a nothing, a 0 requirement, waive the requirement, GPA, I don't think any of that is really relevant or is going to change, is going to solve James's concern. I think the concern is valid. I don't see this as helping. And the other thing that I wrestle with all the time about the sports issue and whether we should have a standard, it's a chicken or the egg problem. On the one hand, if it motivates kids to get more engaged in sports, why, of course, we should have the requirement if it leads to success. But sometimes I think the sports first are what brings the kids into the academics, because I think sports are so valuable, being part of a team. All of those things that sports leads to, sometimes it's the participation in the team that brings you back into the school community that might get you better, performing better in school. And I always say the same thing. I used to have parents say, I'm not going to let my son get a job until he gets his grades up. And I would kind of say to them, well, sometimes getting the job leads to the grades going up because you start to change the way you think about yourself. So I really hesitate to set it up in such a way so that we're not allowing students to play sports, precisely because I think they're so valuable. And I don't really know the answer to it, but I think that to get at what James and Michael are, the points they're making, it's much less about criteria for playing sports and much more about really pivoting and doing some of these big visionary stuff we've been talking about.
Thank you. Dr. Pierce.
Thank you, President Adair. So I just want to clarify again, Resolution 11.1 literally suspends our 2.0 GPA requirement through October 26, 2021. I think it is confusing to our community to have this conversation about GPA requirements and raising them beyond what this resolution has been written to do. This resolution has been written to align us with what OSHA has put out, with all the other schools suspending their GPA requirements. It literally aligns us with those other districts, again, through October 26, 2021. This larger question of what should the GPA of our scholar athletes be? What are the things that we should be doing to ensure that they are competitive for scholarships and future opportunities is the work that the academic committee should be doing hereforth or after this meeting. So thank you, President Adair, for having that foresight to establish that committee. That's one of the things, again, that should be taken to the committee to look really into detail and to see what's the current average GPA of our scholar athletes. I would venture to say that most of our scholar athletes are doing very well in the classroom. It's those athletes that aren't playing that we need to start capturing. It's those stars that are on the playgrounds that ain't on the team because they don't have the 2.0 GPA right now. That's the kid I'm trying to get to the court. We got to figure out how we can capture their interest in the classroom and academically get them engaged and involved. That yes, basketball and being on the team becomes the icing on their cake.
So I agree that I feel that, James, you conflated a lot of things into the this one narrow resolution. And there are big systemic issues. My personal view is, though, as we are dealing with systemic issues as well as COVID, we don't punish the kids that are having to be in the system right now because they didn't do this, but we take the opportunity to work on the problem, like you're saying, and really think through what's right for our district now, what's right for our kids, how does it strategically align, how do we work with our employers to demonstrate the value that we know that our graduates are coming out with. These are much bigger systemic issues. I'm not for punishing kids who have no control over COVID, who are trying to figure out online learning, who, it's a struggle for everyone. And it's a very narrowly tailored resolution that only extends to October and aligns with the governing body for high school athletics. So I'm fine with it, but I love the idea about sending it to committee because I think we have a lot of good, thoughts about, in general, maybe it is time to relook at the minimum requirements and maybe figure out an equitable solution to Dr. Pierce's point about getting those kids that are on the bubble and how do we engage them, and to Board Member Beckerly's point, while still maintaining rigor and the ability to, bring all of our student athletes, no matter what they have, let's improve their GPA, right? They all don't have 4 points. So let's aim high and really wrap our arms around that group. But I love that idea about sending it to committee to take a little bit of a deeper dive on that issue as a whole.
Madam President, I'd like to call a question.
Yes, I was just about to. Treasurer Bahorek.
Well, that's a second on that, but yeah.
Mr. Cole.
No.
Dr. Pierce.
Yes.
Mr. Ragland.
No.
Vice President Reyes.
We're voting to keep it as is, right? That's the question. Because I know we pulled it But there was no amendment.
There was no amendment. This is 11.1 as presented in the consent agenda.
Okay,
Then, Mr. Treasurer.
Exactly. I don't think they
Thank you for that point of clarification. My vote is yes to vote on it as is for presentation in association with the consent agenda. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions about the votes cast thus far? Dr. Pierce, you were yes. Mr. Ragland, a no. Vice President Reyes, you voted yes. Okay. President Adair.
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
The resolution before you is item 11.1.
Mm-hmm.
As it was presented in the consent agenda, we simply pulled it out for a separate discussion and vote. There have been no changes. I heard no amendment.
No amendments, right.
To 11.1.
Is yes.
Your vote is yes. Thank you. Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
That motion carries.
And I do want to make sure that we take the steps to get the issue properly before the proper committee and make sure that this is addressed.
Yes. Okay. Yes, so we will put that into the academic committee to work on. All right, so we will move to item 24, which is board announcements. Any announcements this evening? All right, Board Member Brown.
Just very briefly, because we've just moved into a new year, and it's an opportunity to reflect on the past and to look forward, and knowing that our future is not bound by our past. Just wanted to take the opportunity to reflect. I mentioned at the beginning that COVID does not pay attention to any calendar. We're going to continue to deal with it. But as we move forward, and I really like and appreciate working with all of you this past year, we need to keep in mind not only that students come first and our employees need to be well cared for, but we have to move forward with kindness. That's very important. With civility and with cooperation with each other and beyond, even when we are not in agreement. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing as long as you do it without being disagreeable. So with all of that, Happy New Year.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. I think I saw someone else's hand up. No? All right, I just wanted to make a quick announcement about our FMP process. We are still looking for some community leaders to help us chair our regional meetings. So if you are interested, please go to the website and put your application in. Don't worry about that date that says it's passed. We still are actually, talk about issues of equity. We still have some regions that do not have any applications. And I know we have great people all over this city that really want to get involved and help us figure out how our buildings and what need to be in our buildings in order to help us meet the portrait of a graduate in our long-term vision. So please, I'm going to put a little plug in, and board members have all been assigned regions, and, they are working hard on making videos, and, they're talking to people to get engaged, but this effort is all of us, and we need the voice of the community to be a part of it. So if you have any interest at all, please go to our website. You can read more about it. You can watch a video that I put out about it generally, and apply. Especially for members, if you remember your regions that are special, that we definitely need. I know we need the West Side, which is Ramona, your region 2. I think we need some in region 4. In region 5. Are you 4, Dr. Pierce? Maybe it's not 4. I don't know. But we need people. There are areas of Columbus that don't have representation. So we're going to be asking and pushing, and please just get involved. And if you're not interested in leading, come join the conversation. All voices are important. It's critical. This is going to be fun. We want to know what our buildings need for the future. We want to redesign our buildings and really think about, you know, all that great stuff in order to get us to the portrait that we've worked so hard on developing. So that's my little plug. Anything else? All right, seeing nothing, I will have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's 8 o'clock, y'all.
Second. Good time on this. Good job and congratulations.
Just a quick question. Just a quick question. Did we vote on the consent agenda in full?
Yes.
I want to be sure.
We did that before we talked about item 11.1.
Okay. And again, just as clarification, I'm getting old. We voted to approve this legislation 11.1 just as is, but in my yes vote, my intent was not to vote for the legislation. I did not want to vote for the legislation. My vote for it was I want my vote to be a no. I wasn't sure about, are we asking this to be reincorporated into the legislation, into the consent agenda as it was initially written, as it was presented to us this evening, because I wanted to be sure that my vote this evening for this legislation as presented to us was a no. And I even made that clear in my precursor comments. I was a vehement no against this legislation, whether it was as it was presented to us or whether we ended up amending it to incorporate a lower GPA. Sure.
I don't believe that was the way the vote was recorded.
Yeah. Does anybody have a problem simply allowing Mr. Cole to change his vote back to what it first was?
I do not.
And the issue still passes.
What is the point of order on that procedure?
And Dr. Roush, how many votes do we need to pass that? Because
Pursuant to Robert's rules, it takes unanimous consent for him to change his vote after the vote has been announced and you've moved on. So if no one objects to allowing Mr. Cole to change his vote, then his vote can be changed.
Are there any objections to Mr. Cole changing his vote from a yes to a no on item 11.1? Hearing no objections, his vote will be changed. Does that impact the outcome of the resolution? Treasurer Bahorek.
That's what I was going to ask Dr. Roush. This 11.1 was, let me read.
You need 4 votes.
Okay. So suspending a policy just required 4?
Correct.
And you had 5. So you're still good to go.
Okay. Thank you all. Properly recorded, Mr. Cole.
I thank you for the courtesy. I appreciate it. And thank you for the rich discussion.
Thank you. So there has been a motion and a second to adjourn. So now we can have a vote.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
And Mr. Cole?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, and that motion carried.
Thank you. We are adjourned, and we will see all of you next week when we will notice our special meeting to talk about athletics. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.